Let's look at some of the California appellate courts often cited statements on statutory interpretation. So in Dougherty versus City and County of San Francisco, a 2018 appellate court decision, the court said statutory interpretation is a clear question of law for our determination anew on appeal. In Upland Police Officers Association versus the City of Upland, a 2003 California appellate court decision, the court said, the fundamental rule of statutory construction is that a court should ascertain the intent of the legislature so as to effectuate the purpose of the law. In Esberg versus Union Oil Company in 2002, the California Supreme Court said, because the statutory language is generally the most reliable indicator of legislative intent, we first examine the words themselves, giving them their usual and ordinary meaning and construing them in context. In Green versus State of California, a 2007 California Supreme Court decision, the state's high court said, a statute's plain meaning controls the court's interpretation unless its words are ambiguous. In People versus Arias, a 2008 California Supreme Court decision, the Supreme Court said, if the words in the statute do not by themselves provide a reliable indicator of legislative intent, statutory ambiguities often may be resolved by examining the context in which the language appears and adopting the construction which best serves to harmonize the statute internally and with related statutes. Returning to the Upland case, the California Court of Appeal explained, statutes must be construed so as to give a reasonable and common sense construction, consistent with the apparent purpose and intention of the lawmakers, a construction that is practical rather than technical, and will lead to wise policy rather than mischief or absurdity. In approaching this task, the courts may consider the consequences which might flow from a particular interpretation and must construe the statute with a view to promoting rather than defeating its general purpose and the policy behind it. In People versus Cornett, a 2012 California Supreme Court case, the High Court said, when the language permits more than one reasonable interpretation, the court looks to a variety of extrinsic aids, including the ostensible objects to be achieved, the evils to be remedied, the legislative history, public policy, contemporaneous administrative construction, and the statutory scheme of which the statute is a part. Ultimately, if a statute is amenable to two alternative interpretations, the one that leads to the more reasonable result will be followed. Returning again to Upland, the court said we must construe a statute with a view to promoting rather than defeating its general purpose and the policy behind it. In the California Supreme Court's 2006 decision in SB Beach Properties versus Birdie, the High Court said, where language permits more than one reasonable interpretation, the court looks to a variety of extrinsic aids, including the ostensible objects to be achieved,